Let me be specific and I'll let you respond. There is some debate, I'm not going to get into the weeds, that a lot of the apartments or housings that are being created were already in the pipeline through the predecessor, and moreover, they don't live to the spirit or letter. But let's just say they're all legit, all of them.
But to that point, though, one quick thing. The federal monitor has approved everything.
So let's just say there is. So you got a quarter of the 750 that have been built or in the process of being built. The question now then becomes, they say, all right, well, wait a second. The idea wasn't just to go into the already predominantly urban areas where, even though it's the fourth most diverse county in the state of New York, the concentration of those minorities is in so many populations, but in many others you have less than 3%. You're supposed to be putting these housing in those places. So the question then becomes, all right, how are you going to do it? And you've already said, and you mentioned, if we can play the clip here from when you're on Hannity, I think it's B10 here and B9, that, hey, this is social engineering. What am I going to use? Tear gas. So,
no, because that was in response to their demand to know how I'm going to, their words, combat local opposition. Now, those are frightening and very intimidating words.
Which community wants to maybe lower property rates? One could argue by bringing their community, and that's why they say, because you're the county executive.
But also, you have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, property rights, all at stake here that HUD basically wants to do away with. They're telling me as county executive, you are going to send a letter. This is in that May 13th letter. People should read it. You are going to send a letter to all the communities. And if they do not start the process of revamping or changing or doing away with their zoning codes, then you as county executive are going to sue them. That's ridiculous.
But wait a second.
It's ludicrous.
But 1 second. Forgetting that state and federal law, many interpret states, gives you that authority. Moreover, the consent decree that was signed by your predecessor said he would do that very thing. He would make sure and enforce that those local communities would comply with the directions per the settlement.
But, Richard, New York State is a home rule state. Westchester County does not control local zoning. That is all under the purview of local municipalities. What it says, and you had that up there, as appropriate. I don't think it is appropriate to sue local municipalities where taxpayer versus taxpayer and a complete and utter waste of money, especially since everyone is complying. We are working very cooperatively with all of the municipalities. We've had over 300 meetings so far.
But if they don't comply, are you going to say...
Why would we take out a stick and bang them over the head when right now everyone is meeting around a table trying to find sites in each location
only because
to
of the
build
following
this?
reason.
But we have
in October, you have an important deadline. You already, just 1 second, and then you can tell me why I'm wrong. You already have had to outlay, not you, but the county has had to outlay beyond, you know, the monies I've already laid out. Already you've lost a $7 million grant through HUD. Right now, this would go back to the same U.S. District Court, and you'd go before the same judge who's already made it clear her expectation is that you will enforce communities that are non-compliant to be compliant. What do you think will happen?
We have 7 years to build 750 units.
But you have to give them your plan of implementation for all communities that choose not to be compliant.
Before our first benchmark, which is at the end of this year, we're almost, or would be almost, a third of the way through. Nobody could say that we're not trying earnestly and succeeding. The problem with this is you have a federal government which is going crazy. They are trying to come up with a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Here's the fact. You mentioned before, but wait a minute, hold on, let me finish.
And I will. They're asking you whether or not you were the one who engineered the deal or had to inherit it to live up to your end of the bargain.
We are, Richard. That's the craziest part of this. We cannot understand what we're not doing. We are complying, we're building housing, we're working with the monitor who has approved everything. Then all of a sudden, we get a letter that says, oh, by the way, and we understand this isn't in the agreement, but we want you to do X, Y, and Z, including, by the way, as I mentioned before, put 3, and Adolfo Carrion mentioned this, put 3-bedroom units.
Again, he said recommendation, not requirement.
Well, that's not what they put in that letter. The May 13th letter is very damning to the federal government because it shows
speak to this
how
one point,
because
one thing county legislature says, okay, the one way we can make this, one of the things we have to agree upon is how these folks are going to pay for it when the housing comes there. Specifically, they said we've now put in legislation that would bar any discrimination on the part of a landlord or anyone to refuse a tenant based off their source of income. So whether it's a disability voucher or a Section 8 voucher, they can't turn away. You vetoed that.
So did Governor Patterson on a statewide level. And Congress has never approved this. You know why? Because Section 8 vouchers are a voluntary program. The federal government is trying to force Westchester, and only Westchester, to force every landlord, every property owner, to accept a federal voucher and all of the rules and regulations that goes with it. That is absolutely, in my opinion, unconstitutional. If a landlord wants to, in his or her own business model, accept federal vouchers, that's fine. But to force them, to mandate them to do that when that is not the law, absolutely not.